Hi, my name's Gordon. I'm here today to show you how to fit a gland on a steel wire armoured piece of cable. It's important you need to know how to do this because in your 2365 Level 2 City and Guilds course, Unit 204, you'll be fitting a gland on a piece of steel wire armoured for your final assessment. In order to carry out this task, I've already cut a pre-cut length of 3-core 1.5mm cable. We've got an appropriate gland. We'll be using a small hacksaw, an electrician's knife, adjustable spanners, and obviously to do the measurement I have a steel ruler. And just as important, we've got appropriate PPE in eye protection and gloves. Before we start the task, I'll first of all put on my PPE. It's important we use gloves whenever we're doing any cutting because we don't want our fingers cut, and especially when using metal, a shard of metal can get into your glove and cause all sorts of problems such as blood poisoning. So we fit appropriate gloves. Also, when we're cutting any metal, we need to put on eye protection. The first task we're going to do is measure from one end approximately 20 centimetres. Now this is a random number. Obviously it depends on how long your inner cores you need for terminating. If you're terminating into a consumer unit, you probably want it longer than you would want it terminating into a socket. So I've put a random 20mm. Using then the junior hacksaw, what we're going to do is cut through all the way around the outer sheath and also penetrating the steel wire armoured core. Now we don't want to go through fully into the core, we're looking to go about 3/4 through the steel wire armoured core. Now this is a skill you'll practice and practice, and it takes a little bit of time to get it right. If you go too far in, you'll go through to the inner insulation, which is not a good idea because you get insulation resistance faults. And equally, if you don't go through far enough, when we come to bending the strands off, it's going to be very difficult to do so. So, keeping a nice blade upright, just slowly moving the cable in a circular motion until you feel you've gone through 3/4 of the strands. I think that's probably about right. Now using the electrician's knife, always moving away from you, is go down to the armouring and pull off the outer sheath. Just trim up the edges if you need to. This should then pull off completely, revealing the inner cores. Okay? What we'll do then is slowly, a few strands at a time, is just pull them away and literally with a little bend, they should just come away nice and easy like so. And you just do this for all of them. Don't do too many at once because it just makes it a little bit more difficult and gives an uneven finish, which will make it tricky then to put the final gland on. If you've got a few spare ones which you're finding difficulty, we'll pull those off later with a little bit more of a cut. The armouring on the steel wire armour, which you learn when you do your theory classes, gives it a lot of mechanical protection, particularly when it's buried underground, so you don't inadvertently go through and damage the inner cores. So where you've got a few ones which are still hanging on, you can still slowly give them another little touch with the hacksaw. Until they all come off cleanly. We'll just move those out of the way, keep our workbench nice and clean. The next stage is actually fitting the gland itself to the armour. The first piece we put on is the outer sheath. This will actually ultimately go over all the copper to keep it nice and tidy looking, and it'll blend in with the outer cable. So we just measure that up. These are very adjustable. Just measure the size of what we want, and then we just cut using the electrician's knife, and then slide that over, and it sits in there ready for further use. The next part is to actually fit the gland. So we need to again remove the outer sheath, which will help us fit onto the gland itself. Now the outer sheath will actually slide over what we call the thimble side of the gland. So we need to make it approximately twice that size, which in this case is probably about 25 millimeters. So again, using the electrician's knife, just score around onto the armour. And again, cutting away, take off that outer sheath, having a nice, tidy, deep finish. Slide the outer part of the gland over first, and then in a circular motion, just open up the glands. So all the steel wire armoured are open, and sliding the gland over the inner part of the cable, and it should sit nicely into the thimble side of the gland itself. And then you just bring the two together, and then tighten up finger tight first. And once you feel that's tight enough, then you can use your adjustable spanners. Put one on one side and one on the other, and just tighten those up so they won't go any further. This then can be terminated into any equipment you've got. On your 204 assessment, you have a consumer unit, and on the other end you have a 16 amp waterproof socket. That would go in a 20mm hole you've cut. The washer or ring nut will go over the top. And if you need to have the continuity, we have what's called a banjo clip, which you can put on first. Your CPC conductor will be attached to that, and then the lock nut will terminate it nice and tightly into the piece of equipment you've got. And as I said, the outer sheath goes over to make a nice neat finish. And that's how you terminate a 3-core steel wire armoured for your 204 assessment. Thank you for watching.